Twitch, and yeah, now on LinkedIn. Cool. So people should start rolling in here momentarily. Let me get TikTok set up. I have to do that one on my phone.
Okay. Let's see.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining. We'll kick off here in 3 to 5 minutes.
Yay!
It's working, looking good. I'm excited for this.
Thanks I'm excited for this too.
Okay. And now I guess, cool, TikTok is rolling in. I won't say too much about it, although here at the front, I'll just say that I love some of the jokes that you do.
Thank you so much. That's such a big compliment. I'm glad.
So we'll be very professional with our networking tips. And at the end of the show, I'll tell everyone they should go follow Brooke on LinkedIn. If you're on YouTube, the link is in the YouTube video description. But in addition to all the serious stuff we're talking about today, there are some really good jokes over there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to say thank you so much, John, for taking the time to do this and put this together. This is so exciting. I already see we got some comments. Can you see these, John?
Yeah, I have to jump over to the LinkedIn event page.
Yeah.
It's not in the video chat, but I can kind of still see them.
Okay.
Feel free to, if an urgent question pops up, feel free to flag it. Otherwise, I'll probably be just keeping an eye on the chat and collecting them for the end of the stream.
Yeah, that is not a problem. Hi, John. Oh my gosh, thank you guys for joining. Hi, Marina.
Great.
Hi, Paul.
All right, so let's go ahead and kick off. Does that work?
Yes, let's get started.
So hey everyone, my name is John, senior software engineer with a little over 10 years of experience. I'm the lead maintainer of Latterly.io. Let me go ahead and share Latterly.io. It's an educational and social platform that helps you land your first or next programming role. Totally open source. Improvements are welcome. So you can sign up for free and also get 24/7 chatbot support. If I'm too busy, you can still get a lot of the knowledge that's in my head with that thing. Today, we're going to be discussing the At Least 10 Networking Tips article on the blog. I'll be sharing these tips from my side, and Brooke has a bunch of great tips of her own, and I won't steal your thunder, so we'll get to that. But yeah, these can be grouped into short-term tips. Maybe you're on the job search right now, and you need results like tomorrow. We're going to have short-term tips for you. And then also long-term tips. Maybe you're happily employed, but you would like to become, I don't know, a famous LinkedIn influencer, like I guess we might be. And so basically longer-term professional brand building, we'll have tips for that as well.
Right.
Thank you so much for the likes on the TikTok. Okay, so I think that gives you a bit about my background. Brooke, I really wanted Brooke to be on the show today because she has amassed a large LinkedIn following in record time. Let me stop sharing my screen here. So is the math right? Like 120 followers a day or something insane like this?
Yeah. So I just recently did the math to give everyone some backstory. Real quick, if you don't know me, I'm a boot camp student. I'm trying to break into tech. I'm graduating super soon and I'm so excited. But I just started really heavily networking on LinkedIn in February, towards the end of February. I checked the other day and I had 180 connections and now I have 5,200 followers and I'm averaging a little over 100, close to 120 new followers a day. So I don't know, guys. It's been so much fun. It's really awesome.
Okay, great. So those are some of the reasons you should listen to us. The other one that I would say is Latterly helps you land your first or next programming role, right? And so I have been contributing content and advice to help people survive and thrive even after being laid off for years at this point. I was just telling Brooke, I used to say months, but I guess now it's years now. Right. And for a while, it was sort of like preaching from the ivory tower, but I was recently laid off, effective the start of this month. And I was able to apply some of the tactics we'll walk through to land 13 interviews and a job offer in under 3 weeks of being laid off. A multi-six-figure job offer. So cool. Anything else you want to say, or let's start diving into some tips, huh?
Yeah, let's get right into it.
Okay. Chris says networking is the best way to get job opportunities. Okay. Hey, whoa, Chris. I'm supposed to be the one who says that. Chris is out. Thanks for being here, Chris, and y'all can check out his content as well. So let's start with the short-term tips, and then we will come back to longer-term stuff later. So short-term networking techniques include like warm and cold outreach. So cold outreach, we're going to want to practice direct messaging, and there are some special things that we can say. I'll go ahead and share my screen again. Here's a crazy thought. You can say thank you. So ask clearly and immediately. Don't just say hello. What do we mean by clearly and immediately? Whenever you're on LinkedIn, when you add a connection, so this is a third-degree connection on LinkedIn, and you're going to say, hey, I want to connect with this person. Right. You'll get a pop-up that asks if you want to add a note to that connection request. And absolutely, you should add a note. When people reach out to me, I do not want to connect with them if they have no profile picture, if they seem to be like maybe a fake account, or sometimes even if they have a real like profile picture, but I don't have any connections in common with them and they aren't saying anything. They're just sort of like trying to connect, and it's like, what's going on here? So don't just say hello. You can save the other person time and show respect for their time by being clear and concise when you add a note to connect immediately. Not only are you being clear and concise, giving them a reason that they should connect with you, make them feel appreciated. And there are maybe some magic ways to do this, but you can also just directly say it, like, I appreciate you. And one of my favorite things to say is thank you in advance. Just thank them for connecting even before they do connect. So
I love that.
Thanks. Yeah. This is like borrowed from sales. So in sales, they'll say, assume the close.
Right.
And basically it's like that. If I go to a dinner party, I don't know about you, Brooke, but if I go somewhere, I don't like ask people like, will you be my friend? That's kind of cringe, right? I just start chatting with them and I'm like, hey, I'm so glad you're here, and talk to them about whatever is actually a relevant topic of conversation. Just immediately talk about the thing. This is true at connection request time. This is also true if they do accept your connection request and now you are trying to generate some results and make some calls to action. So you might think it's increasingly difficult to generate results, but here's another marketing and sales factoid, is that the people who are most likely to help you more are the people who helped you the first time.
Interesting.
And so just the fact that they accepted your connection request means they are already a warm lead. They are already more likely than average to do something like a resume review, a portfolio review, a referral. Another one that I like to ask for is, do you have 15 minutes to hop on a call? And I never leave it alone with the 15-minute call. I always want to give them another option in case they genuinely are busy. So I'll say something like, and there's no magic wording here, make it, the way that you would say it. But I'll say something like, do you have 15 minutes next week? Or if not, here's my resume in case that's good. Or like, I'm happy to send my portfolio in case that's enough to go ahead and earn your referral. So assume the close. And so I do want to provide an opportunity for the other person to add value. Gavin, welcome, Gavin. Thanks for being here. When people genuinely contribute to your job search, they have skin in the game. And they basically want to do more. And so how do you provide opportunities for them to add value without creating opportunities for them to reject you? One of my favorite ways, along with assuming the close, is look at the company. The company will often have multiple roles that would work for you. And this should be genuine. So genuinely say, hey, here are a couple roles that I'm looking at. I would love your advice about which one's a better fit. For me, one of this would be, I feel that I'm sort of on the bubble between a staff level engineer and a senior level engineer. So asking them about senior versus staff. And then you can do informational interviews, which are not pointless. They're actually a reason to have this 15-minute call. Hey, what are the expected competencies at your company for staff? This varies widely company to company, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And then I've been on a rant here. I'll do my last tip. My last tip is connect with a bunch of people. So just like I don't think you should be counting on that dream job with one company,
Right.
I don't think you should be counting on that dream referral with one individual. And so this is a big, big pro tip. In addition to the blog here, there's a hyperlink. Check it out. The Laterally Networking Scripts have a bunch of rules of 3, and I won't get into them now. But basically, there's 3 job families that I would encourage you to target. Those are hiring managers or engineering managers, individual contributors, fellow programmers,
Mm-hmm.
and also technical recruiters. And you might ask the question, like, which should I reach out to? Just reach out to all of them. Just reach out to all of them. Some people that I have talked to feel this might be disingenuous. Well, if I'm asking for Sarah's opinion and I'm asking for Jim's opinion, what if they both give me their opinion? And then what if I take an action that aligns with one of them and not the other? Is this disingenuous? No. Getting opinions from multiple people is a brilliant move. And I think if you asked Jim or Sarah, they would also encourage you to get multiple opinions. For the most part, I don't know. You might run into some people that are like, you need to do what I say. That feels kind of like a red flag for me. I don't know about you. So what do you think, Brooke? Do you have any thoughts on these, or should we just slide into your advice?
Actually, I do have a quick note on the connecting with multiple people. So was one thing, a tactic I've been doing kind of stealthily, right, is I do have a little list of companies I have an interest in potentially working with whenever I am actively looking for work after I graduate my boot camp. So same thing, I'm connecting with multiple people there. For me, I'm being a little bit more in the background. I got to be honest, because like I said, I'm not looking to interview right now. So my tactic is more along the lines of engaging with their content. When I do start a conversation with a recruiter, hiring manager, senior engineer that might be potentially looking for a junior dev in the future, it does tend to just be more about their content or their history. How long have you been with this company? Tell me about your journey there. Especially if I see that maybe they might also have come from a boot camp. You know, we have some common ground there. And of course, there are lots of people with CS degrees or self-taught. So you kind of have to do your research, but looking for opportunities to have as many connections at those companies, I agree with you, is just really, really wise.
I really like one thing that you said right there, which is engage with their content.
Yes.
And I like that for 2 reasons. I've been talking about direct messages. I think you'll say some things about direct messages, but you can do a lot of relationship building in public with just comments.
Oh, sure.
And a lot of the information there is like not secret. It's not proprietary. So depending on what you're talking about, you can totally just ask in public. And then there is a level of reciprocity that's built. And the power of reciprocity is so invaluable. It's just an incredible cheat code, really. That if you can build a genuine relationship, I think as you're hinting at, even before you need the favor, just build a relationship. And then when you message them later, they're much more likely to say, yes, it has to do with that warm lead idea, but it's a different way of building it. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jonathan Hinchley, hey there, thanks for joining. But he commented saying, yeah, of course, engage with their content over DMs. I think that there's value in both, and there's arguments over which one it might serve a better purpose, right? I almost think that engaging with content might lead to better success in a DM. Like if you've been following them first and you're commenting, that poster is more likely to be like, hey, I've seen Jonathan in my comment section. So whenever he pops into my DMs and he's like, hey, Brooke, I've really been enjoying your content, I think it's more likely that, as an example, I would react and be like, oh, he probably really means it because he has been liking and commenting on my content, versus even nowadays, I'll get sometimes people being like, oh, I love your stuff. And then they'll just go right into asking me something, or to me, it sometimes sounds kind of generic. Actually paid attention to anything about me. And that comes through. I think people are generally pretty good at picking up authenticity. So that's a really important mindset to have when you're reaching out to people.
Authenticity is huge. I'm loving this back and forth. Hopefully I'm not delaying you from your tips. I will say the proper etiquette of what you're allowed to say on LinkedIn has changed. So
Sure.
Years ago, it was incredibly formal. And I got my start on social media in TikTok. I have over 20,000 TikTok followers. And
Wow.
years ago, when I tried to use the same content on LinkedIn, I got pushback. I got people saying like, you shouldn't be posting memes on LinkedIn.
Right.
And it's changed now. Just recently in the job search, I mean, your jokes are a testament to this. But I've done a couple little jokes, and they do very well now.
Right.
So in terms of authenticity, I think you can bring more of your real self to LinkedIn now. I'm super stoked about this. Yeah, so I'm glad to hear you say that. Some of that to me sounds like what I would call lead nurturing. So again, bringing sales tactics into the social networking realm. And if you're interested in this topic, please stay tuned to the end of the video, because we're going to get into what I've called long-term networking. And I'll have a bunch of tips. Just to give you a slight preview, when you have thousands of followers, it's hard for a lead to not be warm. It's hard for a lead to not be warm when your reputation precedes you. Okay, right. I'll leave it at that for now.
No, that's great. That's great, John. So yeah, I was just gonna, one thing I get a lot of messages asking me about is, Brooke, how do I get started with this? You know, I may be at 5,000 now. I was not always. Just a few months ago, I was really nobody on LinkedIn, mainly just because although I'd had an account for years, I wasn't doing anything with it. I also get messages too. I just got one today being like, hey, did you take any sort of masterclass on networking? And I'm sure there's great ones out there. I'm not discrediting them. I personally did not. I chose the tactic of just posting what I want to post. This actually kind of goes with Mao submitted a question. He says, are the humor and jokes intentional to your engagement, to increase your engagement, or is this just you having fun? So at first, it really was me just having fun, and it still is. But now I recognize that people generally tend to enjoy the jokes, and I'm super glad because I have so much fun posting them. Like, I think they're funny. I think the comments are hilarious. I love whenever I post something out and you guys, especially the dad jokes, and you guys come right back at me. It's so much fun. It's hard not to have fun, and it makes me enjoy my time on LinkedIn too. I mean, it is a professional platform. At the end of the day, I also do care about showcasing my skills and looking for a job, right? And that's why most people are on LinkedIn. Most people are not on here looking to just become content creators and get thousands of followers. Most people are just trying to highlight their skills and assets, make the proper connections, and establish themselves in a field and find their next job. And that's excellent. So, you know, just because what I'm doing is kind of going more towards the content creation side, there is not a one size fits all at all with being on LinkedIn. Like, you don't have to be doing that. That's just something that's my personality, and I've stuck with it, and I'm really thankful that people enjoy it too.
I love that. Gavin, I made a note of your question. We'll circle back to that later. Hey, so Brooke, let's say that we're talking about those short-term tactics again, and we're going back to the realm of DMs. What are your thoughts on, like, what can we say? What should we say? What should we not say? I talked a little bit about how maybe what's allowed to be said has changed.
Yes.
But if I'm standing in the audience right now, that doesn't help me too much. Okay, it's changed, but like, what is it? Like, what should I be saying? What should I not be saying?
Right. Good points. So you mentioned earlier, like, don't just say hi. Don't just say hello. That's been a huge topic for me in my videos and everything. So I get so many of these messages now that do just say hi and that's it. And it's not a good tactic. It's not a good way to get your message across. It doesn't tell me anything about who you are, what you want. I'm not going to respond to a message if I just get something like that. It's just not going to happen on my end. So, I always encourage people when they're like, I just don't know how to reach out to somebody I've never spoken to, never interacted with. So I always recommend things like I said, pay attention to their content. Take 2 minutes to do a little bit of homework on this person. You don't have to read a novel of their life story, okay? But you can summarize and just scroll through someone's profile and be like, okay, this is what they do for a living. This is their educational background. They might have something in their about section about their hobbies or interests, or fill in the blank. And like, I talk about common ground a lot. That's really important. So that's something I highly encourage people, because also people love to talk about themselves. So if you reach out to someone and say, hey, I love that article that you wrote about fill in the blank, whatever it was. Yeah. Or, hey, I saw that you posted that video, showing us your new dog that you adopted into the family. whatever, I'm making stuff up. It's like, of course I want to respond to that because I want to talk about my dog. I want to talk about my article that I wrote or my achievement that I've done. So it's a really easy way to start a conversation and keep it flowing and begin the building of that relationship for sure.
I love that. And I'm so glad you're here to help me translate some of my jargon because we share a lot of the same mental model, but I feel like the words that I use sometimes don't resonate.
Right.
So the background in economics, the PhD, what you're saying to me, it's really clear. It's crystal clear. Give them utility.
Right.
Give them utility. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
People love to poke fun at economics. Like utility is this like magic point that doesn't mean anything. Quick thank you over to Renergy, if I'm saying that right. So we now have over 2,000 likes on TikTok. Thank you so much. Feel free to drop a question in the chat. And if you're on another platform, hope you'll hit the thumbs up or drop a comment so that the algorithm will send the video around and more people can learn.
Absolutely.
So when it comes to giving utility to people, one of the things that I mentioned earlier is give them an opportunity to contribute to you. This will vary by personality type. Some people are repulsed by that. Oh, you're asking things from me. I don't want to help you. But other people like me, I'm genuinely passionate about educating people. And if there's an easy way that I can help, I'm going to do it. If you give me a hard task, I might think twice. But if you give me an easy, like yes, no question, like A, B question, and if I feel like I can help you by just responding, I'm going to do it. Like if I read it, I'm going to respond. It's not that much work and I get utility out of it. Here, you also mentioned people love to talk about themselves. That's absolutely a way to give them utility. Just be a sounding board. Just be a person to listen. And then here's another one that I'll call out. Give them a compliment. Just directly give them a compliment. That's another way to give them utility as well.
That's one thing I do a lot personally. I really, and I mean, I try to be authentic about it. I'm not just sitting here trying to be like, you're the best ever, but I like that. And also, to be fair, the people I'm reaching out to, it is because I like their message. I like their vibe. I want to get to know them better. I think their work is interesting. I'd love to learn more from them. So that's it. That's also a great segue into starting that conversation for sure.
Should we go to the longer term stuff? Let me look at the chat here. I'm seeing a couple comments. Let me make sure I'm not ignoring anyone.
No, you're fine. Take your time.
So Jonathan, thanks for the comment. Jonathan says, I don't have as big of a following as Brooke, but 1,000% agree on how low effort DMs are just ignored. Yeah. Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah.
And then Maho, welcome. Thank you so much for being here, Maho. Says, we are humans. If someone reach out on DM and says something unique and authentic, it will have 200% more chance than be accepted just because it creates empathy. Creating empathy, totally a big fact. I think we said a little bit about reciprocity earlier, but reciprocity is just one of these mutual social bonds, isn't it? And another note that's striking me now, we're talking about this in the context of networking. Appropriately, that's the main topic of today's video. But you can begin building these two-way bonds at learning time. Right. And so laterally, I'm a big fan of learning in public, building in public. It will help you pre-grow your brand. And so we're segueing into the longer term things. Growing your brand is going to make your job search easier. But there are other reasons to do this besides growing your brand. Here's two more really important reasons. One is learning by teaching. So it reinforces the concepts in your own mind when you're teaching it to others. And by creating online content and by having public portfolio on GitHub, which I think you should be making day one.
Yes.
You're reinforcing these concepts in your own mind. And you can build these relations with fellow students. And we know in the academic literature, when we're talking about literally learning things well, project-based learning, team-based learning, social emotional learning are incredibly powerful reinforcers in the brain. So thank you again, Maho. A really great insight about networking. And we can see how a lot of today's tips are not exclusive to networking. We're talking about networking. We're going to be emphasizing software engineering careers.
Sure.
But if you're in tech, even if you're not in tech, you're going to be able to take a lot of these lessons. So do consider sharing the video with an interested other, whether or not they're in tech. Maybe they're a student. If you're on the student, if you're on the job search, I think there's a lot of lessons here for you. Do you mind if I steal the show and talk about some long-term tips?
Please go ahead, John. I'm eager to learn too.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I'll share my screen again. Can you see that?
Yes, I can. Awesome. So hopefully everyone else can too.
The infamous blog once again. Bathsheba, thanks for the likes. Okay, So we've been talking about this a bit already, but let's get more direct about the conversation. So engaging with content is a particular practice that can be generalized more broadly. To generalize it, I would say participate in social and professional communities. So when we talk about content, maybe we have in mind LinkedIn in particular, or I've said something about TikTok, I may have said something about YouTube. There are these social media platforms, but there are many communities outside of social media, and these are not to be undervalued. Using tools like conferences and using things like intentional communities around shared causes. Brooke, I know you were talking about shared interest, right?
Yes.
Well,
absolutely.
there are like organizations around shared interests. So like that's like the exact thing that you're ordering. If you're the doctor, it's exactly what the doctor ordered, right?
Yes.
So at Latterly, again, I'm crazy about rules of three, and I don't know why. Maybe I just have some attraction to the number three. But at Latterly, I identify three kinds of communities, and I encourage you to participate to some degree in all of them. Okay. And so there are large Discord communities, small Discord communities, and diversity oriented or cause oriented communities. And I think it's important to participate in all kinds of these, and they're for different reasons. So a large community will tend to foster shallow relations that are large in quantity. And this is super useful. If you think about the job search, you're going to want to target tier 2, tier 3, and tier 1 companies. You should target all of them, and they all serve their purpose. So many of the jobs will be existing in the market of tier 2 and tier 3. The bar to obtain an offer in this market is a lower bar. So it's a good fit that a relation might be more shallow. So there's a match there. If you're trying to get a tier 1 offer, I hate to break it to you, it's not easy. And I don't know if I've mentioned this on the show yet. I think we chatted beforehand. But those 13 first-round interviews that I was able to obtain as a result of 100 job applications, this is more than double the typical conversion rate. So this is a really powerful conversion rate, and it's no accident. It's in part attributable to the fact that I'm already a senior, and it's also in large part due to the practices we're sharing with you today. But those 13 interviews have converted largely to final rounds. So I'm 1 for 1 on final rounds. That's not so much to do with social networking, that's technical prep. Another thing that you can get help with at Latterly. But I'm also interviewing at Stripe and Amazon. I'm heading up to the final loops. I'm absolutely terrified.
I'm so excited for you. Like,
Thank you so
my
much.
gosh, that's so big. That's such a big deal.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because if it's me alone in a room, I'm just like criticizing myself. So the reason I share that with the audience is to show the fact that I know what it takes to get a tier 1 final loop. And maybe I should brag further that I've turned down offers from Google and Amazon in the past. So I don't just know what it takes to get to the loop. I know what it takes to get to an offer. Mm-hmm. And it's just not easy. Social networking will not give you a free job. You need to actually do the hard work of the technical prep as well. But the social networking will unlock an interview, which is necessary but not sufficient to get to the final loop, isn't it?
Right.
And so this is where you do want to build some stronger relationships. I don't know about you, Brooke, but I only have 24 hours in my day. So I'm going to spend some time going for the large quantity play. And then I'm going to be intentional with a little bit of time to try to develop stronger relationships only in a few cases. And I want to be strategic about where those cases are so that I can maximize the value of my time. Right. And so those cases, I would encourage you to look into influencer-led Discord communities and diversity-oriented or shared cause communities. And the basic reason is, earlier you talked about engaging with content, and this leads to reciprocity, and we talked about empathy. A small influencer-led Discord, the influencer who leads that organization has a strong incentive and a strong appreciation for you might say like super fans or people who are high participation individuals in that community.
Yes.
So you almost get a double benefit of this reciprocity effect that we mentioned, and you don't get a double benefit with a random individual. You get a double benefit with an influencer who is disproportionately likely to have tier 1 connections. Okay, that's the reason for that. And then the diversity oriented or cause oriented, it's just a very direct passion connection that, again, if you put on your economics hat and you think about this magic word utility, because people have similar preferences in these communities, maybe vibe is the better word. I don't know. You can help me out here, Brooke.
I think vibe's a good one.
Okay, thanks. You're just naturally going to form a two-way social relation much easier with people that already assume shared values with you.
That just makes sense. Honestly, that talk about the most organic way of forming a relationship. Like if you're a part of those groups, you already know you have that common ground. You have at least probably some similar values or a similar background story, and people like community. I think it's very natural for us to find things that we want to connect with other people over and want to fit in with. So that's actually just very smart.
Thanks. Now you talk about things that are natural. We might get to a tension point, which is, what if my personality, I'm somewhat introverted? So
Right.
we'll come to that in a minute. Hopefully that's not a curveball. But let me just drop two more tips.
Yes.
Sort of things that we've already said, but we've hinted at it, and let's just state it directly.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the communities. Now let's say learning, building, and creating content. Just being active consistently. Treat your job search and treat your networking practice with a budget. Okay, maybe I'm being too much of an economist again, but I would use my time with a budget mental model. And I would just say 30 minutes a day, something like this. I'm going to go make content, 30 minutes an hour. You can fine tune this for yourself. I could give you population level aggregate recommendations about how much time. But the truth is that you can A/B test this on your own. You can go make a joke and see how many likes and reactions it gets. And you can determine for yourself if that's a good use of your time or if you should go be attending a conference or chatting in a Discord or whatever your other options are.
Yes.
So we participate in the communities, we create content consistently, and then the last thing is you need to close the deal. You need to be intentional about formalizing your LinkedIn connection. So if I'm over in Benawad, do you know who Benawad is?
I don't.
Okay. This guy is pretty funny, and he has a giant Discord server.
Okay.
You should check it out, particularly if you're in web development world. So if I'm over on Benawad's Discord server and I'm just like chatting with some people, maybe we're joking, let's convert that into a LinkedIn connection. And it's a really simple step is you just consciously make the action to either message them or if you somehow become aware of their LinkedIn, you simply send them a connection request and mention. And so two other things that I'll call out here. I'll send you to another website called Taro. Jointaro.com is kind of like a career development platform for engineers, but they have a Slack with many, many people on it. And I can't tell you how many connections I've gained just saying hello from Taro. Hello from Taro because I met them on that Slack.
Right.
And the same is true for the Latterly Discord. So if you go over here to Latterly, under the community tab, you can join the Discord for free. And I encourage people as the admin of the Discord to do an introduction when they join the Discord.
Yes.
And it's not required, it's not binding, but it is encouraged to share your LinkedIn because I want mutual understanding that one of the things that we're trying to do here is consciously build social and professional community. And one of the things that you have to do there is just add them on LinkedIn. So I don't think it's cringe. I think in particular, if you get involved in a community where it's like sort of already table stakes, already understood, already the culture, building those connections on LinkedIn it really is just a matter of just clicking the button and saying hello from Taro or hello from Latterly. So that seems really easy to me. Maybe I'm not the most introverted person. But yeah, maybe you can help me solve this other problem, which is, okay, John made it sound so easy, but for me, it's just like, John said it's not cringe, but for me, it feels cringe. So do you have any tips about how to maintain these practices if you're just sort of naturally introverted?
Yes. I think I'm the perfect person to ask because I really am genuinely one of the biggest introverts that I know. I've talked about this before in some of my posts, some of my videos, but like my social battery is this big, like honestly. And I'm genuinely excited to be a part of this live stream, but tonight I'm going to be silently in my house, like just regenerating and recuperating. And that's just how it goes. It doesn't mean necessarily that just because you're introverted, you don't enjoy the interactions that you have, but it takes a lot more effort. And I will say too, especially if you aren't used to reaching out to people, again, one of the most common messages that I'm getting now is like, what do I say? What do I post? How do I put myself out there? And that's very vulnerable for people. again, just my own personal story. I don't have a magic formula for that. I didn't read something that was, I don't know. I just decided I was going to do it. And honestly, my biggest motivation is it's more important for me to get a tech job than my discomfort. That was my threshold of pain, so to speak. And so sometimes you have to figure out what matters more for you. Like, was I just like, oh, I can't wait to message 20 strangers today? As a boot camp student who has no experience in tech, I have not invented the next greatest AI model or, big social media. I haven't done, I'm still trying to center divs over here. Okay. Like I'm doing my best.
I'm
And
sure you know how to send it.
I have since learned. But I think it's very natural for people to be like, I feel awkward going, especially reaching out to people who are experienced, right? Who are well established, who do have maybe a large following, and that can be very uncomfortable. So my formula for that was just being very honest. I at no point have tried to pretend to be anything other than I'm trying to break into tech. I'm a student. I would like to learn from other people in this field, and I'm looking to expand my network. And thankfully, I think because I come across as very honest, people are super receptive to that. And, John, I just have to talk about the tangibles that I've received from just those simple outreaches. I mean, I've had people be like, hey, if you get stuck on code, I'll do a call with you. Let's hop on Zoom for 15 minutes and I'll walk you through. And sometimes these are people who normally charge like a lot of money for their time and attention, which good for them. But I'm just saying, when you create that human natural connection, people want to help. That's very natural with us. And so, again, also with the introversion too, it can feel overwhelming, like, oh, this is a lot of work and a lot to stay up with. I'm not going to pretend that it's not a lot of work. I would be lying to you, especially the level of activity that I'm operating at. And not everyone has to do that. I've kind of taken it to a whole other level. But I agree with what you said earlier with time budgeting. Make it realistic for yourself. Take baby steps. You don't just suddenly have to start a newsletter, write a dozen articles a week, and you don't have to do that. Start with commenting on people's content that you find interesting and want to engage with. Repost something that you find funny and add a little thought. It doesn't have to be groundbreaking, but put your own voice out there. And people are going to be receptive to that. So I think that's my, yes, you do know how to center a div. I just saw your comment. You absolutely know how to center divs. So that's just a great way to take those baby steps and figure out what works for you. Like, I have a lot of connections that really I never see post, but they're always in my comment section. And that's how they're building those relationships. I know who they are based on the insights that they provide on my content, or vice versa, right? So the good news is there are a lot of different things that you can do. Not everyone has to be doing the videos and cracking the jokes. Especially if you're starting out like me, share a little bit about what you've been working on. Show your work, ask questions. If you're like, hey guys, I'm having a hard time understanding this concept. Who do you know in your network that can help me with this, or that is an expert with this? And that's a great way to find new connections with. And then you can send them a message and be like, hey, Jonathan said that I need to connect with you because you're the expert in this. And who doesn't want to get a message like that? That's just smart, I think.
I 100% agree. I'm trying to think if I have anything to add, but I don't know that I have much. Okay, let's turn over to audience questions. I'm aware of one. Quick reminder that if you have a question, throw it in the chat.
Yes.
I should take a look at the LinkedIn event page as well. It seems like more comments are flowing in over there, and thank you for them.
Yes. Real quick, I saw that Mao, I answered part one of his question earlier, and there was a part two. I wanted to circle back. He said, follow-up question. I think this is targeted towards me. Are you afraid that because all of these jokes, that people won't take you seriously? And if yes, do you have a good strategy for that? I have thought about that. And if you haven't followed me for a while, I don't only post comedic content. I even the jokes I do make, I still try and orient them around tech, to be relevant to my audience, and also the fact that that's the field I'm transitioning into. And the truth is, I think that you can't play it too safe. And of course, I'm not talking about being inappropriate or just strange. Let's be reasonable here. But I think people appreciate that I am just being myself. And I'm sure that also there are professionals, maybe hiring authorities or people who might be looking to hire junior devs that see that and go, this girl's silly. I'm not here on LinkedIn for that. And that's okay. But you know what? That's going to apply to anybody. Now, some people on here are very opinionated about things on the more technical side, right? Like it's a lot more serious, and they're like, this is like TDD, right? That's the hot thing that I'm seeing posts about every single day. And I'm sure you can post something, and a hiring manager would see that and be like, I would never hire them. So it's like, I don't worry about it too much, mainly because I know my content isn't particularly divisive. So if someone doesn't like jokes, I probably don't want to work for them anyway.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm probably not going to fit in because they would hate me being in the Slack channel throwing some memes out, and that's okay. So that's probably closing doors that I wouldn't want to open anyways.
This is a topic where I do have something to add, and I'll pick it up right there by agreeing with you. You reap what you sow.
Yes.
And so anything that you post, you will attract some social connections and repel others.
Yes.
And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. You're effectively filtering for culture fit. And so if we look at this from the lens of how do I improve my outreach to interview ratio, and then my first interview to final loop, and my final loop to job offer, and then even my on-the-job performance, we are preemptively improving all of those metrics by being our real selves on LinkedIn.
Yes.
So I think much earlier in the stream, I was commenting about the fact that I'm very happy that you can do this sort of thing. And so to build on this, maybe 3 more tips related on this. Oh, good number, eh? Total of 4.
Yeah.
I'm surprising myself how much I have to say about memes.
That's what this whole call is about. It's just
yeah.
memes.
My memes are more on TikTok. I don't post many memes on LinkedIn. Maybe that'll change in the near future. But one of the reasons that I initially grew a large audience on TikTok was precisely because of memes.
Okay.
And so I think there's a simple way that you balance this is you make sure that you have a significant serious presence and a significant humorous presence. And so this mental model of using the level of significance, which we can translate into statistics, standards of statistics for significance range between like 1, 5, and 10% are pretty common thresholds. In medicine, they get to like 0.00 whatever.
Okay.
But 1, 5, and 10 are pretty common for levels of significance. And so just use this rule of thumb. Don't post more than 90% jokes, and don't post less than 10% jokes. So that gives you a semblance of balance to start with. It's a broad range, intentionally so. And what you do there is you monitor your own metrics, and you do a personalized A/B test where you say, hey, I did a couple extra jokes today. Was that really worth it? Did my audience grow or shrink? Did my connections grow or shrink? And so what I do is I sort of follow whatever is expedient to grow my social network. And yeah, the 80-20 rule has worked pretty well for me. I think I'm like 80% serious on LinkedIn, and I'm 80% funny on TikTok. Right. And I think that's okay. Maybe that'll change over time. Yeah. That's worked for me. Those are some tips that I have. And I'll give you one last tip, which is suppose that you have decided to crack a joke. How do you know whether it's appropriate or cringe?
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't. There's always a little bit of risk, but just a simple heuristic that I like is if I heard this in the office, would I be okay with that?
Sure. That's a really good threshold, I think, too. Like, yeah. Again, I don't post inappropriate things. I agree with the metric of would I be comfortable saying this in front of my boss?
Yeah.
Or on the other side, like if I were looking to hire someone and this was something they were saying, like, would I be uncomfortable with it? That's just always a good baseline to have. I'm all for being yourself and having your opinions. I'm very transparent too, but also, again, most of what we're talking about here is relevant to LinkedIn, professional networking, and you should keep that in mind. Yeah, that's just a good rule of thumb. It is better to be a little bit on the safer side. And sort of you're talking about the ratios of jokes to not jokes. I also do have a healthy mix of me sharing about my journey in boot camp, networking tips, content, and that's just focused on building connections. And actually, just real quick while we're on this live stream, I want to just give a super quick shout out while I'm thinking about it. I recently connected through just, again, organic traction of just commenting and sharing and then being shouted out by other people. But I connected with Josh McLean recently, and he actually works at Nike. And I was able to have a quick chat with him, and it was just the same thing. He was like, I like your content. I just want to get to know you better. Super organic. Neither of us were trying to sell each other anything at the time. I don't know. Maybe there's a hidden agenda I don't know about, but it was just one of those wonderful things that came out from it. So he's a big wig at Nike and also like a career coach. And from it, he actually sent me a free book, his new book, Catalyst. And I'm excited to read it after I graduate my boot camp. I'm really busy right now, but I just wanted to say thank you. But also just to bring attention to the unexpected things that can also come from these connections. I've been really blessed to have people be like, hey, again, been following your journey as a boot camp student. When you're looking for a job, like, let me know. Make sure you tell me. I've got some connections. And I haven't even asked them for that. I genuinely am being 100% honest when I say there is not a single, I can testify. You could go through all of my DMs. I have not reached out to one person and been like, hey, can you help me find a job? That has never been a message that I've sent. Just sharing my own experience.
Thank you for sharing that. And I can plus that with some data. I love an opportunity to use actual data.
Drop some numbers here, John.
That's me. That's my, I'm not wearing a hat, but that's my, metaphorical hat. So earlier I shared that I applied to 100 job posts over the course of a month and received 13 interviews. I'll give two clarifications there. One, that was my frequency of application as a senior. In the current market at the junior level, I'm advising much more. I'm advising lower selectivity and higher application volume. I typically advise 80 applications per week. We can get into the reasons that if you're interested. But the social networking aspect that relates to what you said, Brooke, among the 13 first round interviews, 7 were inbound.
That's awesome.
The majority, a slim majority, but a majority nonetheless, were inbound. And so we've shared tips for cold outreach and trying to build connection, garner referral from an outreach, but reemphasizing the value of long-term networking or personal professional brand development. This is what generates inbound, as well as doing things like optimizing your LinkedIn so that when recruiters use the recruiter search UI, the keyword pops up and stuff like that. So there are some lower level sort of minor details, but building your personal brand is going to pay off in many ways. And the unexpected, as you mentioned, is one of them. And another very, very clear measurable way is the fact that the majority of these interviews were inbound.
That's awesome.
I see a question from Peyton. Thanks for the question, Peyton, on LinkedIn. And over 3,100 likes on TikTok now. Y'all are awesome.
Woo.
Hey, why not do a few more? 3,100 is a weird number. Peyton says, have y'all, I love the y'all, by the way, originally from Austin. Have y'all been humorous on LinkedIn from signing up, or did you warm up by posting more serious content at first? I'll say for me, the humor is light and recent. And I mentioned this earlier, but I'll say it again. I had a prior phase where I tried to share things that went viral on TikTok, and they just utterly flopped on LinkedIn. This was like a few years ago.
Right.
And I'm almost to the point where I'm going to just try it again. Like, things have changed, and I'm not sure about the magnitude of the change. I just know that at some level, and I don't know how big that level is, but at some level, I'm seeing a lot more success of meme-like joking or transparency things. Maybe it's not a joke. Maybe it's just like, hey, I don't think people would have shared that a year ago, and now they're sharing it. It's like paid transparency and things like this.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm missing something, Brooke, but really, like, in all of these categories, I'm like happy about all of them.
Oh, I am too. Of course, I'm new relatively, right, to the heavy on LinkedIn game. So I can't talk to that, how things have changed over time. But I will say I love going on LinkedIn and seeing people talk about prioritizing your mental health, right? Focusing on work-life balance and talking about how, like, you should not be sacrificing your sanity for a job. And I'm glad that that's how the culture, I think, is starting to prioritize. And I have always been a hard worker. I have a strong work ethic, and I've always prioritized my job and taken great pride in everything that I do. And that's wonderful. But again, at what cost, right? Like, at the end of the day, Are you drained? Is your family not seeing you? Like, where do your priorities lie? And so I think these are really good conversations that are happening. I think a lot of it sort of has shifted with COVID. I've been working as a recruiter for years. So I've seen, again, just the priority shift. Right now, people want to spend more time at home. They want to take their vacation time and not check their emails, not respond to texts because they're on vacation and they will get back to you when they're back.
Yeah.
And so I think that the shift is positive. I also think it's leading to more inclusivity, more diversity, because people are, I think, really becoming more open-minded to different perspectives, more comfortable talking about things that people just used to not address. So I'm very happy to be sort of a part of seeing that. I think it's wonderful. And, you know, back to Peyton's question, thank you again. I've just posted whatever I wanted, like I said, appropriately. But if I think it's funny, I'm going to post it. And I'm really glad when you guys think so too. Like, that's great. But I'm just having a good time.
Oh, that last bit is actually one thing I'd like to plus one. When we're creating content, I mean, maybe this, I think you're going to agree with this. It's so obvious to us, we don't even think about it. But if I'm new to this, I might not think about it, which is a lot of your content is not going to go viral, right?
Right.
Viral is the exception, not the rule.
Yes.
Huge. So how do you go viral? You basically post a lot and then get lucky. So I think the consistency is the key, would be my take.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if you post a joke here and there, and it doesn't go viral, I don't think you should necessarily be discouraged. If you're like, ooh, is that inappropriate? Maybe you phone a friend, maybe you ping someone, and maybe it just wasn't that funny. That doesn't mean it's offensive or anything.
Right.
So you can get some people in your circle who can be sounding boards or rubber ducks. But also just know that even if it's a great joke, these algorithms seem to have a limit to everyone.
It's like, oh my gosh, the algorithms, it's such a nebulous, mysterious thing.
Yeah.
Like, I even talk to other content creators and they're like, oh, you know, I used to do it at this time and now, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I just post whenever. That's just me. Some people have stricter strategies, power to them. I'm busy. I post when I get to it. And I will say, I do try and stick around right after I post to engage in the comments. I do think it helps. First of all, just drive better conversations, but I do think my posts tend to do well too. And also along the lines of like metrics, I think some people get discouraged, especially, listen, if you're starting out, you have not too many connections and you post and maybe your post doesn't get any likes, or you see it gets 20 impressions and also no likes. It doesn't necessarily mean that what you're posting is bad. It means you have a small audience.
Yeah.
Everyone starts out with a small audience. There are no exceptions unless you're literally already a celebrity creating a LinkedIn profile. That's pretty much the exception. Like, we all get there one step at a time.
Great call out. Okay, I have one more question that I'm seeing from Gavin.
Yes.
So Gavin, thanks for your patience. Gavin says, do you meet with software like Calendly? The back and forth for the calendar fill-ups can be quite frustrating. Here's what I do. I usually use Gmail and Google Calendar. I don't have Calendly. I don't have Zoom. I don't have anything like that. I'm not saying that's a bad idea, by the way.
Right.
I'm just saying I don't do it. And I've gotten along fine. And so the way that I usually address the calendar fill-ups is I just give a large advance notice in a large window. And so, yes, if I said, hey, do you have 15 minutes today? And some salespeople will do this, right? Like sense of urgency and whatnot. But I've found that like creates friction and it like kind of kills the vibe. Am I using that expression properly?
Yes, you're doing great.
Okay.
No
and
cap.
So one of my go-to phrases is, do you have 15 minutes sometime next week?
Right.
You have 15 minutes sometime next week. And so I'm giving the person a whole week and I'm only asking 15 minutes. It's a low ask. That has worked well for me. What do you think?
Yeah. So, and I talk to people also who different content creators or people who do coaching and stuff. I, wouldn't call themselves content creators, but consultants, mentors, so to speak. I personally also use Google Meet and I have a Gmail. So I like how it syncs with my calendar. I'm open to using what other people prefer, but if I'm the one setting the tone and setting the appointment, that's what I do. And I try to give people a couple of options. Like I said, I'm also very busy because thankfully, as my following is growing, I'm getting lots of reach outs to do collabs, which is Awesome. John's an example. Thank
Congrats.
you, John.
No, thank you.
It was so awesome to get like, hey, do you want to do a live stream? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So super exciting. So time management is really key, but giving people a couple of options allows for some flexibility. You just got to do what works best for you. But having systems that implement calendar reminders where people are getting emails is really important. I actually just did a post about this today about setting up calls and stuff and how just essential it is to respect people's time, be on time, stick to your commitment. Like if there are last minute changes, I understand life happens, but let people know. Again, we're being professional. Don't overextend that window of time. If they allow you 15 minutes, watch the clock. Even if someone's being very friendly and doesn't cut it off, like let's be mindful of, people have other things going on and they're giving you their time or offering their time and services to you. I just think that that's really important.
Totally agree. Okay, Cyril, I really hope I'm saying that correctly. Thank you for being here. Says, was this recorded? I slept before this. The answer is yes. It will be persisted to the Latterly YouTube channel. So let me show you that.
And I will also be sharing this to LinkedIn as soon as it's uploaded. So if anyone, I know some people message me and they're like, I'm just not going to make it because I've got a lot of international connections. So that's okay. You guys are still cool. You guys are still part of the club.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for being here. And so this is the Latterly YouTube channel. You can go over to lives and it will be persisted on this view. And then Brooke may have a copy somewhere as well. But that's where I would go. Okay, Alejandro. This is from my personal experience. I started growing my account this year, and I could say my content has been serious most of the time. Cool. All right. Thanks for the insight.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Another thing, too, like I've even had some other conversations with people. Like the jokes are just something I like to do. And again, I know I said I post a mix of actual tips and content that I think is funny, but there's not a one size fits all. There are a lot of very successful, very reputable professionals on here that I've never seen post a joke ever or make a funny comment, and that's okay. But they have a lot to offer. They are educating people. They're still building those connections. They're still having very meaningful conversations. So like you don't have to copy or fit a specific flavor. Some content, like I think people who like the funny stuff, they end up engaging, and I'm sure, like I said earlier, there are people who look at it and they go, ugh, this is not why I'm here. And that's okay too. We're all friends. We all have different audiences. And at the end of the day, like my focus really is building connections. I'm here to learn. I enjoy having a good time. I love the banter that often takes place in my comment section. Like I have so much fun, but at the same time, I'm trying to upskill myself. I have a very strong business mindset. I'm interested in helping other professionals and vice versa, and helping everyone, like, let's advance each other's careers and see how we can help each other learn and grow. That is absolutely, at the end of the day, my number one priority.
It's yours. And as you said, it's a shared goal.
Yes.
And so I think that's a really great reason to, in a LinkedIn context, again, assuming that you're saying something you would be comfortable with in an office.
Sure.
Besides that, being trusting by default on LinkedIn. I mean, I think it's relatively a safe space. It's not like you're, walking out into the woods or something like that. It's a website. So trusting by default is going to allow you to grow more rapidly in affinity with what you have been saying, AFF, not INF. No guarantees around the magnitude, right?
Right.
Well, Renergy from TikTok says, thanks so much. This was amazing. Have I missed any questions that you see, or should we wrap?
Give me literally 10 seconds. I'm scrolling real quick. I just want to make sure. Alejandro says, being true to yourself is a great filter. I completely agree. Thank you for that. Let's see. Michael Taylor. So proud of you, Michael. I've been watching your growth. Sorry, he's self-teaching and he's doing such a great job. So I do just want to give him a quick shout out. Thank you so much for watching. He's doing some really great work in building in public. If you're watching this and you are starting out in tech, build in public, share about your work. I understand it may feel a little bit awkward and embarrassing, especially if you're starting out kind of like, building things that don't look like the next Facebook. We all start out in the same spot. You should show your progress and you're going to be really proud of yourself along the way. So didn't mean to go off topic, but I think that that's really important. And so if you've been debating on it, you should do it. It's totally worth it. Daniel Neri says, I'm hoping this conversation is signifying a larger change in the populace where we're becoming more tolerant of each other and humanizing others more than previously. This is circling back to us talking about the increase in diversity and having these conversations that I think are just so human and part of us coming together. I love it. I totally agree with you. And I think it's very encouraging to see that too.
Me too. Okay, what a great note to end on, eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks everyone for watching. Brooke, thanks again so much for being here. I've put your LinkedIn in the YouTube channel
Appreciate it.
description. You have assured me that that's okay before I did so.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else people should know, or is that sort of the main way?
Nope, that's it. I may or may not be starting a YouTube channel after I graduate my boot camp when I have more time, but that'll come later. For now, if you're starting out, have any questions, or just want to have a conversation, connect with me on LinkedIn. My DMs are open. I love meeting new people. And John, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You got it. And then my last plug would be, as you can probably see on the screen, scrolling along the bottom, you should join Latterly.io to land your first or next programming role. If we haven't gotten to your question during the stream, or if you're watching the stream at a later date as a recorded form, come over to the Discord and you can drop a question 24/7, whether I get to it or some member of the community. Hundreds of people over there that will be very much predisposed to adding you on LinkedIn. And so maybe there's a quick hack to boost your little LinkedIn connections there. Yeah, it's totally, you should totally do that, right? I would do that if I hadn't already done that. Okay.
Yeah, no worries. No worries, guys. Well, hey, thank you everyone who did join. I appreciate you and love you guys so much. And thank you, John, for your time. And you guys have a great day.
Thanks. And I know I just said we'd wrap, but David came in with a last minute question.
Just kidding.
David says, is there a link to the document you have both been sharing? And I will post that right now to the Discord channel. It is the blog, At Least 10 Networking Tips.
Yes.
Blog article number 12 on the Latterly blog. So
I will also take time to share that on my LinkedIn as well, in case anyone is curious to read through it. It's very well written. It has some excellent tips. John is super smart. He's a numbers guy, and I'm very fortunate that I was able to do this live stream with him.
I'm blushing. All right. Thanks again, bro.